Good morning, everybody. We got a little bit more of an update yesterday. Tech led the turnaround. Well, in part, it led the way down a little bit. Transports really were the main heads up of what the distribution that was happening. So now, this move down. We look at what's to the left, and so tech. Looking at the ETF here, tagged its 50 MA yesterday. We always look to the left of a moving average to see whether it lines up with any resistance, and we see it does. And so we're in an area from this low here where it broke the prior low and looked like maybe it was going to roll back over again, and of course it didn't. And looking over to the left side there, pretty simple as to where things fell the last time, and just recognizing that as an area where there are sellers supply and that things will likely stall there. And now, so that's lined up with the 50 MA, a whole number. Let's see, it's not doing too much here this morning. Things are up a little bit more. So now they're kind of flat, give or take a little bit. They were up, they were down. So it would make sense for prices to stall here for a little bit and not go too much higher. And we'll see where they go. Yesterday at lunchtime was this rounding bottom here that occurred. It was a nice little setup. Unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention. But prices took off from there. It's pretty much a classic type of a setup after an initial run up like that to build a little support area with that bottoming tail bar. It was a nice little continuation there. So looking at where today, I'm just looking over to the left here on my weekly chart, noticing that the 20 MA is right there as well, give or take. And so if I was to put 100 MA, you'd see that the 100 MA is right about there. So I don't know, we got that little price resistance there on this particular sector. Got a cluster of moving averages. I'm not sure what Doc is asking there, Dan. Hold on. All right, so just taking note of that. Little move off of the low. There's a lower highs, lower lows. We're going to see how much of a lower high this makes. And when whatever selling starts, what type of retracement occurs. Or does it go sideways, showing relative strength that it's at resistance? And we'll see how that plays out. Looking at the Qs, we'll get to SPY. And second here. See the Qs didn't quite hit the 50. The resistance a little higher, backing off here this morning. That didn't get to its resistance area. So again, tech was leading, and so some stocks within the Qs here underperformed, and we could easily go and look at the whole list of stocks there and sort it by percent change in the day and see what underperformed and what outperformed. But some semis did well yesterday. That didn't tag the 50. And there's some that really didn't move very much, looking at some individual stocks. So typical leaders like LRCX, CLAC, I'm just looking at a few here, TER, they really didn't move very much. Something like AMD, kind of like at a 1, 2, 3, but at this resistance area here. Look at how that flipped up this morning. So while showing a little relative strength, it's up at this resistance, so unlikely that that's going to move a heck of a lot. But some encouraging signs. We'll see how much things pull back or not. All right, let's Okay. So spiders. This is a target area. Obviously, I marked it there a while ago, unfilled gap in between the moving averages. And look at the distance spiders are from the 50 MA, and it didn't even tag the 20. So depending on how you look at things, price movement or moving averages, you can see that tech has been leading and this is underperforming. And whether you look at financials or different things. But we've got the beginnings of a turn, and we'll just have to see where this ends up the week, whether it can continue higher or whether it begins to pull back. And just drag this up a little bit. Right. And where is it here right now? Pretty much unchanged right at the top there. You see the pivot high. So no matter where we look, pretty much things are in areas where they're likely to consolidate a bit and rest. And then we'll assess that. It was impressive that it did hold the 200 down here. On those down days, buyers continued to step up. Thought it would come down into this area here, but it didn't. And so that's unchanged. SPX. Let's check these quotes. Okay. And you're talking to me, Robert. I'm just taking note of where the premium is that is acceptable day to day for the moment. That's pretty tight. Right under yesterday's low. That's surprising. So based on what we've already looked at, the upside looks like a better bet than the downside. I don't think buyers are going to go away so easy, meaning the strength that we saw yesterday was encouraging. So I would think that there will be stabilization and maybe more of just choppiness. Looking at things like minor support, because there's nothing underneath here. You can see the way that rallied up there. That's what we call a void of support. And you have to look to the left to see, well, subjective, it's what we have. And so let's see where that lines up on the daily chart. I can apply that there. All right, so if buyers were to step up in this area, right, give or take, which they should, just based on that strength that we saw over 2 days, this would be an obvious place for them to do it. And so again, duplicating that, say in an area, give or take, somewhere in there of 43.20, and looking at any big open interest in those areas that might be expiring today. Can we see anything of big significance? Anyway, so this is where I look for that to stabilize. And we look at the spiders, give or take, well, be the same spot, so would be around 430. Well, 430 and change, and a little bit there. Or if it dips down to 430, whole number, that's where I suspect buyers would be willing to step up. All right. The markets, transports didn't do too much. Did okay. Still in a downtrend. Depth of retracement up to that pivot, somewhat encouraging. He's going to tell more from the dips than the moves up. Because once it moves up, and you could say, here's that void concept. Where do buyers begin to step up and hold things together? And the Dow's been the weakest, a little stronger there yesterday. Downtrend, short move down. So, and expecting sellers to show up again, it's common sense. If this can get up to the 200, we'll see if it does. An obvious place in a pivot. So this didn't reach any moving averages. It didn't reach this pivot high compared to, let's see, SPX actually got a little bit above that pivot high, closer to the moving average. The Qs, which we looked at, got through the 20 MA and above the pivot. So it's showing different ways of recognizing relative strength and weakness, and which sector might do better than another, and then which sector might begin to stall because it reached its destination sooner. And so technology. Right. Up a little bit, not doing much of anything there. The transports got killed on the way down. They're down at the bottom of the trading range. Almost at the bottom of the trading range, give or take, but down here far enough where we'll see if they can begin to stabilize here. So small cap stocks, speculative. And if they start to hold up here and do well, that'll be encouraging for our anticipated end of year performance or rally that typically comes. Else here, Bitcoin. We'll take a look at crude oil. You can see interest rates are down a little bit. TBT was coming down yesterday, and that helped the markets tremendously, even though bonds were closed. But you can see the pullback there in TBT. Still in a strong uptrend. So it can't say that there won't be another move higher, but you can see it's up a little bit here. Actually, decent sized gap up here this morning. You got to keep an eye on this. This is the market's focused on right now. But in a strong uptrend and a little extended, and we talked about this and the dollar and how much has gone up, and looking for the turn over the last few weeks. And the dollar got pretty darn close up in near this area. So last week's topping tail. And with the dollar pulling back a little bit, interest rates pull back a little bit, regardless of the turmoil going on around the world. Buyers stepped in. Now we'll see how much they can hold on to the gains that they made off of the low. Do the 10-year, gapping down, catching up with TBT from yesterday. So we'll keep an eye on interest rates to see if they can continue to retrace. Internals, yesterday was decent. Let's see here. Yes, put call. No, I just wanted the raw data. I had it here. So not as good as we'd like to see on an up day, but what we want to look for is a day where this closes up around plus 1,500 or better. No, not quite there yet, but a good start to trying to make a turnaround. We'll see where it goes. All yours, dear. Good morning. But recording the 2050 on the Q's making a setup for bullish. No, not what I was saying. Right. I was saying with the Q's, they're in between the 20 and the 50. They underperformed XLK, but coming up to the 50 MA when it's lined up with resistance is where we anticipate sellers to be. And you can see, this big topping pattern that formed. And so what we want to see now is can it go sideways at resistance? That's how we recognize bullish price action. So rather than pulling back a lot, it'll go sideways and chop around. Go ahead, Dan. Does breadth have double bottom concept? I don't really look at it like that, Tony. It's more of a just, areas of where breadth has gotten to an extreme one way or the other. What I would point out here is that even though the S&Ps made lower lows, breadth made a higher low. And what the takeaway from that is that something out there was showing relative strength, technology. The encouraging thing is that sentiment is so bearish here.
And what else was showing strength yesterday, obviously, was energy with the war and military. Look at military ripped yesterday. I looked at a couple of them, but there was just no brainer setups because the gaps were so big. And now it looks like many of them are gapping up again. But Greg, I don't know if you said it, but I mean, what I find additionally so impressive yesterday is we had the bearish gap on the horrific Israel news over the weekend. And I was even saying yesterday morning, as we were just bobbling around here, I said, look, based on history, war, et cetera, I said, I would not be surprised for the gap to be negated in 1 or 2 days. And that might have surprised a lot of people, but I've been at this 25 years full time with Greg's longer, and we've been through a lot of different scenarios, including war. So
what I would add to that, Dan, is all the things that we've seen. Call it the markets. It's really people. They're ruthless when it comes to money. They could give a shit, excuse my language, that women and children are being killed because they'd step over dead bodies for $1. And so when they recognize the world isn't coming to an end, and prior to what happened, the markets were turning around, which we saw, the turn, and they're like, okay, the world's not ending. Go buy what was doing okay. That's the way it is.
Right. Well, it's not only buying what's okay, but it's also buying from a fundamental perspective what they think is going to be a beneficiary of war, which is military oil, construction equipment. We sold a naked put on this J yesterday. Look at that beautiful pattern, and that barely capped down a few pennies. So, all right, good conversation, Raul, and on YouTube's asking about Vista. Yeah, we actually are in this as a buy setup. It triggered yesterday, and it's not too late at all because you had a higher high, higher low. It's not extended. So yeah, that looks fine for a buy setup. Now, even though directionals are a little harder to find, because we're in a downtrend, bouncing a downtrend, but although we have no problem finding them, whether they're Plymos, there's 1, 2, 3s galore. I mean, this is a perfect time to be selling these put spreads. So I gave like 5 yesterday that I don't think got filled because when they triggered, I was wanting price improvement, and then, you know, they triggered like 30-minute high, let's say, and they didn't retrace. They went sideways and ripped. But I posted like 4 pre-market today, so you know, just because those didn't hit doesn't mean we will not be able to find plenty of them. But you know, this is a perfect time for short-term put spreads. You know, this is a big multi-week turn. And you know, I think it can grind its way higher into it. Let's see, there were only 2 earnings trades. Pepsi here, a sloppy, well, sloppy Climo, but far from the 20. It had earnings. Alex and I did a trade, and maybe some others followed. We trade earnings. We trade earnings stocks, trade options on earnings stocks before or after earnings. And before earnings, if it's a directional, we'll buy them if it's not too inflated. But we also sell them. So we sold the 152 spot 50 puts for Friday. And so Alex, I don't know what you're doing, but I just put an order out to buy them back at a penny and just be done with it. Where was the other one? Neog. And then gapping down here, 1660. Now this is not a good Climo because it's kind of parallel to the 20, and it didn't have any good strikes to sell anyway. But it could be a short-term exhaustion gap, would be my bias. Juniper got a downgrade. There's just no pattern. We'll see what it does. These 2 got downgrades, but these are bearish patterns. So this is a potential bottoming pattern. It didn't trigger. The trigger for the bottoming pattern is Friday's high. And now it's gapping under it. So that's very bearish. I got Palantir in the other computer that we're in. Let's put SWKS there. That would be a great call spread candidate. This Palantir was in the weekend letter. We bought call options. We sold half at the high. Now it's gapping up. So I'm going to keep a short leash on this. We have a beautiful open game. Let's see which. I forget what strike we have. All right, we have a 15.5 calls. All right. PCAR, Thomas. Yeah, that's on our 1, 2, 3 list. I already have it in here. I have an alarm at whatever 87.80, I think. But this is actually 2 1, 2, 3s in a row with a bullish weekly monthly. So yeah, that's on the list. Arco, big gap down. So Bali, I do not trust pre-market prints unless you see a tradable pattern. So notice how I don't even see one print here. So I don't trust it unless you have a level 1 that is showing you, you know, a big offer that's under yesterday's closing price. XPO, yep, that was a closing breakout on Friday. I would have put that in the weekend letter had I seen it. That's a nice closing breakout. Dunking alarm just went off. This I gave as a put spread idea. Could be a day trade also. Yeah, level 1 or 2, Alex, not level 1. Level 2 is going to be pretty meaningless pre-market. But level 1 shows you the size at the bid in the offer. All right, dunking Coher here, bottom right. I think it had some pre-release or reaffirmed guidance or something like that. A nice big gap. Let's look to sell a put spread on that. Now Cuervo also gap under this. I notice how this gap down is bigger than SWKS. So I like SWKS better. But that I don't know who downgraded them, but that's doing some damage to their charts. Amazon Prime Day today, sloppy W bottom. But let's look for a put spread on this. My option sellers. You know the drill. Like, I already know it's liquid, so it's really just going to depend on what I can get here for the 124s. Here, I'll do it real quick. Amazon, and I would just be interested in Friday. 124s are only 43 cents. So, you know, when the premiums are low like that, I obviously don't like it, but I would still consider a narrower one. So the $2 wide's only 22 cents. That's this could be setting up for a day trade also. This is a nice rally off the low, close. But that's a nice 15-minute chart right there. All right, thanks, Scott. It was sitting. Yeah, AMC we talked about yesterday was you know, just a junk bottom fixture, but it was fine. Pattern's fine. All right, SMH. I'm looking for 1, 2, 3. I'd be looking for the 144 strike. These two arc ladies are W bottoms. Here's one at the 200. I gave this as a put spread over yesterday's high. And this is very similar, but it doesn't have good strikes or premium. So we'll go with the arc W. A world cloud here. This is what we call a bullish new low reversal. And now it has a 1, 2, 3. This very well could go up to 50 MA. Light volume though, 116,000 is the problem, but the pattern looks good. Oh, John Tudor Jones was on Squawk Box today. Billionaire. I admire him, and I agree with I think every word he said. He said, you know, the US has the worst fiscal, you know, situation since World War II. He says, you know, we got clowns that just don't want to face hard facts. And he said, look out one day when we have 20% of the budget's going to be for debt payments. And he said that nobody has a backbone to want to deal with it, to deal with it. But the reason I'm looking at Hood is I didn't know he was the founder of that. Wow, I got a ton of alarms going off here. A nice opening tick, so that's bullish. But Hood's a put spread. Man, then my alarms are going nuts here. All right, Alpha India, we're already in a put spread. XLY, another bottoming pattern. I like that yesterday was a gap reversal. This would be a no-brainer put spread. I think I looked and it was spreading. Let me look again. 157.50, 157's 39 by 50, not bad. Let's come back to it. But if somebody wants to scan this sector for us, that's a nice W bottom. Look at SWKS ripping here, middle chart.
Range Central traded above some highs here. Looks
what?
Range Central RNG traded bottoming pattern, just traded above a 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I like the gap reversal, sure. Yep, beautiful bottoming pattern. It kind of looks like light volume here. Let's give it 5 minutes. And then I like it, bottoming pattern. But yeah, that XLY looks great. Oh, Ring. This was the one, Greg, I mentioned in MT Live that it could possibly be a bottom fisher. It's a double bottom on the weekly too.
Why I set the alert?